One, two, three. Yo, yo, yo. What's going on? I see Bernard. We see me. I think we hear me. Let's double check. We have a couple technical difficulties here. Let's see if we can make them go away. Let me get a double check here. Let's see. Yeah, okay. I'm hearing me broadcast, so that's a good sign. Still not hearing Bernard broadcast. And we were going to switch it up too. We were going to lead in with Bernard doing a little bit more of the talking, and me being on pause for a few and then coming in. But we might have to reverse that until we get Bernard straight. But thanks for checking us out. We're trying to do our episode 4, as you can see on the screen, for Introverse, and it might be more introverse than usual if it's just one of the two of us talking for a while. We're talking about social me versus social media, meaning how we are in our social worlds. One of them being that sunlight's tough. One of them being the social world of social media, and the other one being the social world of the reality of social. Bernard is still not here, my man Bernard. We have no idea what's going on. Could be the powers that be. Maybe it's the powers that be, Bernard. Powers that be are trying to hold us down. They can only hold us down so long. This would be a whole new take on Introverse. It's like I try to figure out what it is that you're saying when you're really, really playing the bag. Be like, man, we really miss Bernard at the party. We can never seem to hear him. And both of us are reasonably technical proficient. So I'm checking on my side too to make sure there's nothing messing with your audio. Let's see. Reading the background here. The only thing I can think of, which is the age-old thing, but I know you know this, Bernard, is if anything else is occupying your microphone. Yeah, the only other thing I can think about. Interesting. Well, Bernard's trying to get it fixed. So yeah, that's our topic for today. We're talking about what it's like on the social side of the spectrum when you are in a real social environment versus what is your social environment that you're creating as introverts, thinking about what our social presence is like. I'm going to check out Bernard here.
Now.
Hey, now. We do hear you.
Check.
We hear you loud and clear.
All right. I don't know. I had left twice, but I guess you had to close the whole tab. Maybe I closed the whole tab and then.
Interesting. I've not seen that before, but that was really what it's like when, I guess that's what it feels like when the introverts are not being active, right? Leaving them hanging.
Yes, that was actually a social experiment, an anti-social experiment.
Absolutely.
That we did on y'all. Let me get this clubhouse room started.
And I now will go disappearing on the camera for a little bit. We'll let Bernard do the intro, and then I'm going to come on back for y'all to really, really hammer that home, right? What's it like when that other person just kind of leaves you hanging, right? And I was saying to Bernard before we came up, I was like, sometimes what my wife says about me, she's like, you can come, but we got to think about how you're going to be when you're at that social interaction, because if you're actually more trouble than you're worth, you might want to stay back. So,
all right, let me get this. I guess, are you just going to start your clubhouse when you get back? You're muted now.
Yeah, I would, because I wouldn't be saying anything for a few anyways. So it'll be solo on Bernard for a little bit.
All right. Let me start the room. All right. Welcome to Introverse. Pro Lyrical is helping his son ride his bike right now, so he had to do that to make sure, you know, there was gonna be no problems. He had to get that energy. So today we're talking about social me versus social media. Um, get this clubhouse room going. Introverts, we don't really like formalities. We like to get right into it, but we had to do a little setup right now. Pro just got back from umpiring baseball game. So if you're joining us on Clubhouse, welcome to Introverse, episode number 4, social me versus social media. Pro will be joining us in a little bit. I'm gonna hold it down. First, let me say, if you saw that intro, with the beat, a couple graphics in there, I want to give a shout out to the Noun Project. We're not sponsored by them or anything, but just giving credit for using the graphics. We had the cassette with the brain, so that's the Noun Project. You can find these cool icons that normally I was using Adobe Express, and the cassette tape is by Hey Rabbit. The brain is by Karina. So shout out to them for having those logos, those icons we could use. All right, so today, Pro wanted to talk about this, the idea of when you're on social media, and how true is the social media self to yourself, and then also when you're in the physical, when you're present, how true is that? I guess, is that true self true to that social media self? I guess you could also take it the next level too and say, how true are you just being to yourself when you're in your presence? So when you're on social media, how true is that to you and who you would be in person? And then I guess also when you're in person, how true is that is to you? How true are you being to yourself? So that's we could probably have to break that down even more, because as I'm saying it, I know it could be a little confusing, but so I mean, yeah, I guess I don't know when Facebook first came out, what, 2000. I don't know, maybe I guess that's the year it came out. I remember I was in college. Somebody said, "Hey, I want to send you a Facebook invite," and I was like, "What's Facebook?" I guess it's just like if you watch the movie The Social Network. People are like, "What's the Facebook?" All those scenes. And so they sent me the invite, and I was like, "Okay." And it was only at that time for people at college, so you had to have a .edu address. So got on there, put on my profile. My profile was long. I had I like music, I like beats, I like this artist, I like all this stuff. Had pictures. So yeah, it was definitely a new thing for the time. It was a brand new kind of thing that had never existed. Because I remember talking to my friend recently. I was like, "What did you do before there was social media?" I'm trying to think, like, what were we watching TV? Because even at that point, people weren't on phones like they are now. And I guess I probably just had websites open in the background while maybe I was working on music. I might pull up websites, I guess people are probably more on like blogs or forums. Especially, if I'm making music, I'm on like a web, a blog about music. Yeah, because now it just kind of stays open, right? If you have social media, it just stays open in the background or in the foreground. So I don't know when I thought about this, but I never saw social media as a thing of anxiety. Like, oh, I'm an introvert. Like, being on social media, it's probably felt more at home, because I always say to the introvert, I feel like the introvert feels very comfortable on something like online dating, because it's a lot slower pace. It's like having your mind on the page. It's like, introverted people are more used to internal thinking, maybe like writing an essay, having time to like write out your thoughts or write out an email. Like I'd much rather write an email than call you. I'd much rather write a profile and send you a text form message than talk to you on that. I mean, if I like the person, if I was interested in dating them, yeah, eventually I want to talk. Not even just eventually. If I like the person, I wouldn't have a problem talking on the phone to you. But definitely, when I get to construct thoughts, say exactly as I want to say it, present myself and what I want to say, I feel like this is the highest quality me. It's kind of like me and Pro always talking about, are you better freestyler versus better writer? And it's like, well, if you want that power packed punch, then yeah, let us write the verse, because when you get it, you can be like, oh, okay, this is this is it. Where it's like, yeah, on the phone, it's kind of like freestyle because you're like, okay, I'm thinking about stuff now, but off the top of the dome. So when you're on online, I feel like introverts probably, if they want to be on social media, would welcome it because it's definitely different than an in-person social experience. Even though in the social network, if this is truly what Mark Zuckerberg was saying, he said, we're taking the social experience and we're putting it online. It's like, okay, well, you can try to do that to a certain degree, but obviously there's still things missing like depth, context, or intonation of voice, unless you're talking about video or audio. But if you're talking about text and photos, it's flat. So I think for the introvert, I personally would say I have never seen social media as this. I've never really seen it as social, honestly. I mean, it's somewhat social, but I've never seen it as like a scary thing of like, oh my goodness, um, it's not a place where I want to be. It's a place where I feel exposed. It's too invasive. I think I feel the best when I have these kind of mediums to transfer who I think I am, whether that be writing, audio recording, video. Maybe it's the more because it's a method, it's a bridge, it's a vehicle. Maybe that's why, to me, social media just feels natural because it's just a way to translate ideas in a much more methodical, slow-paced way. Now, somebody said, "Hey, let's get on a Zoom call." Depending, I don't know. It depends on format too, right? Because I had to teach virtual for the past year. I loved it. I was like, log on, okay, students. Here's your thing to do. Now we're going to work quietly, and here's a video, and here's some audio, and now we're going to share screen, and now we're going to interact with each other through Google Jamboards. To me, it was like being in the mind space. I love the idea of the computer is kind of like the mind. When you're able to do things in the computer, it's almost like you're in someone's imagination. You're seeing on the screen what they're thinking about. When I move this sticky note over and then I write or I draw, it's like you're inside my mind. So I think the virtual world for the introvert, it's almost like the intro virtual, the intro virtual world. That's the place to be. I really like Zoom. I don't like Zoom when it's a purely social thing. When people start talking over one another, when it's just everywhere, like, or if you've ever been on Clubhouse, where we're broadcasting on Clubhouse now, and it's just people um, talking, and it's like everybody's microphone is open. It's like, no, that's like being at a loud party or like being at an event where there's no direction or flow of conversations, like everyone is talking. In those cases, things like social media, social engagement apps become chaotic. And I'm like, well, who would ever want to be in there? Even I'm surprised that even people who are very social would want to be in there, because like you literally can't, because of the technical aspect, you can't hear who's talking to who. I mean, I've been in rooms where there was like 20, let's just say 20, probably more though, 20 to 50 microphones open. I'm like, who in the world knows what is going on right now? So are we being our true selves on social media? I mean, obviously everybody can play themselves up more than they truly are. I guess I'll say on one level, I have to think about this. Am I gonna expose my secrets? I think I would say on one sense, especially for someone like myself who's philosophical and likes debate, I found myself wanting to debate and talk to people on social media because, again, you can see a paragraph and then you can read it and you can reread it and you can think and counterpoint and then you can paste your paragraph. So it takes time. It takes more time to be on a social media where you have the text. Whereas when you're in the moment or you're in a meeting and someone says something, you may not come back right away. And you think, you're like a day later, like, I had this great point, or how come I didn't think to say that? And that response. I think for the introvert, being in the verbal, in person atmosphere can feel not necessarily overwhelming, but like you're on another person's playing field. Like you're here to play football and they're playing baseball. Whereas I think the virtual space is like, hey, Professor Lyrical, he's giving me comments. I think the virtual space, the introvertual, is the place where the introvert has all of the things set up to make them more successful to communicate or win win in debates, win in communications. I definitely have thought about this question. I've definitely thought about this a lot in terms of are there people who are timid to be on social media because of the word social? Is there an aspect of it where they say, I don't want my life. Okay, now I think that's the better idea. It's more about privacy. Most people, man, that could be a whole nother topic we should do. Mark that down. I think a lot of people think of introverts as private, and me and Pro have talked about this with friendship. It's like, yeah, I'm not just talking to anyone. I'm not just gonna be friends with anyone. I'm not just going to show anyone things that are important to me. So there is a certain level of privacy. But I will say, on something like a Facebook, I don't feel like it's invasive. Me personally, I don't ever feel like me posting or showing things was invasive at all. So I guess the question is, are there certain introverts who, when they think of social media, do they think of invasion of privacy? And this is even before we get into all the Facebook tracking us, Twitter, they're mining our data. Everybody's terrified of that now after they said whatever that movie was, the social dilemma. Like everybody was like, oh my goodness, the things that they do and how they track us. I think maybe people are more, I think everyone, introvert, extrovert, whatever, is definitely more aware of the privacy issues now. But before everyone thought about that, before that became a main uh, point of topic, the question is, I wonder how many people who first got on a Facebook or Twitter when these things came out thought, oh, this is too open to the public. This is too personal. This is too much of my privacy online. So there may be some introverts who definitely feel that way. I can't say I've ever felt that way. I think one, if you're an introvert, you definitely want to be known, right? Everybody wants to be known. We're all humans. We want to be known. But I think for the introvert seldom gets to be known in the social context that is out in public, out in person, in physical person. Because the person who you are and you want to express usually gets cut off. You want to talk about things in depth, talk about things in complexity, and then someone's cutting you off or they're interrupting or they're changing the subject and you're like, wait, I was about to say this thing and now the conversation is like out of your control and you're like, ah. Whereas online, it's like, hey, here I am. Top of the page to the bottom of the page. Here's my pictures, here's my likes, here's my interests. Like I said, I think like when you think about online dating, to me it's perfect for the introvert because it's like here I am in a paragraph form. I got to say it without being interrupted. You get to read top to bottom of the paragraph. You're like, oh, that's who that person is. Oh, that's a good word. Oh, I connect with that word. You can visually see the text. So I think in some ways, for me, I guess I might argue that social media for the introvert is almost an empowerment to really like put yourself on display for who you really are. I don't think. I mean, I would have to ask some other introverts, but I don't think, at least for me, I wouldn't say, "Oh, as an introvert, this is too private." I'm like, no, this is actually an empowering thing for me to feel like I can actually finally be seen in some ways.
Mm, I'm with you. I'm more, and thanks for holding that down for that. I'm more, definitely more in line with. I'm trying to get my mic over here on Clubhouse. 1 2 1 2. It's being funny. 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. It doesn't, man. There's always something. The powers that be are trying to 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. It's just yeah, one. There we go. There we go. I think. No, it gives me the mic for like a second on Clubhouse, and then it wants to shut me down. So let me try it like that and just see if I can run it. I hope that's not feeding back for you, but yeah, I think social media for me.
Well, hold on a second. I was saying, let me see if I can switch. Her Clubhouse replays are off. I don't know why they're off.
My mic is not wanting to play through my headphones, which, as we know, is let me try it this way. I think this will work. Let's go this way. 1 2 3. 1 2 3. 1 2 3. The crew is called Beauty. It's always something.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hey, let me just restart this
Yes,
Clubhouse room anyway.
Oh, all right.
I'm gonna restart the Clubhouse room. I know
Clubhouse.
every time I schedule a room, I look to make sure the replays thing is on.
And then it backfires.
I don't. It should have been automatically on.
Well, I think we can change it from if you go to the share and then go, no, not share. It's the three buttons up on the right hand side and the replays off.
I tried that. I think once, I mean, I ended it anyway, so it looks like it's not letting me, but let me see. It says, oh, wait, are you still in there?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, because it says this room is no longer available.
Well,
as I try to restart it. Let me see if I can.
One more thing working against us too. We are live on LinkedIn. We are live on YouTube. Facebook, however, has decided if you're a minute late on Facebook, it appears. So I reposted the links on Facebook on my page. You might want to put them on yours too. Speaking of being social, but yeah, let me know what you want me to do on the Clubhouse side because I can jump into a new one if you restart, or I can restart one if you want.
Let me see. About to restart. Why is it still telling me to say schedule a room? Okay. Yeah, I hate wasting time with
social media.
with the behind the scenes stuff.
Right.
Also, while we're doing that, while we're getting all our social ducks in a row, I don't know. Do you see the chat? I pasted the little the attributions if you want to paste that in those different streamings.
Oh, that's what that is. Okay. I did see that. Yes. Oops. So yeah, we were just shouting out credits towards folks who are part of the. Oops, maybe I did the wrong one. No, I think that's right. I just did a little bit. Yo, is it me or is it you? So yeah, so the cassette tape by Hey Rabbit, Source the Noun Project, Brain by Karina, Source the Noun Project, cassette tape by Hey Rabbit. Yeah, that's just for our graphics for people, for the logos and so forth. So just throwing that on there. Give credit where credit is due. I'll chime in too while you're doing this. I guess we can glide into Clubhouse, and I'll jump in when that's up and running. Kind of do a little bit of the reset and kind of glide into it. So Bernard was continuing in on the piece about social media, versus social in general, and does social media give more license to the introvert Really, it's to people in general. I mean, I think all people have to wrestle with this question. I just think introverts will wrestle with it more by definition. But think about, my wife, for example, she's an extrovert. However, she is not extremely extroverted, maybe counterintuitively over social media, but for her, it brings up more of an issue of privacy. Whereas, like you, I've not really felt too violated by that kind of stuff. Sometimes I'll think like, okay, if I'm traveling to do a show and it's out of town, do I really want to give specifics when I'm like leaving my house? You know what I'm saying? Like, if my son and my wife are home, do I really want to be like, hey, at 3:35 p.m. I'll be, so yes and no. It's like I was much more like that when I was in Boston. Now that I'm out here, and we don't really know that many people out here. It's like, people don't even know where we live like that. Um, it's a little different. I think about it a little bit. We're also in a much bigger community where you can't really just kind of roll on in. Where we were before, we were like up in the middle of Winter Hill and Somerville, and it was kind of like people who knew where I was knew where I was. So I wasn't like, hey kids, I'll be gone. The house would be empty from you know what I'm saying. So those security issues came up, but in general, talking on issues of, did it give me more social license on social media after my initial pause and my initial, I was telling Bernard, my initial thoughts on social media was like, I wouldn't add anybody. It was just really one way. It was like, I just wanted to see what people do. I use Twitter like it was the news. I still do for a lot. I'm not really super active on Twitter. I check it out maybe once a day, maybe once every other day, truthfully once a week sometimes when I'm not paying attention, um, because there's just so much more out there. But when Twitter was on and popping like that, I would just hashtag anything I wanted, just find anything I wanted to know, find the news. If someone said something happened, I'm looking at Twitter because it was the best way to find out information real fast and see what was trending. So I liked that about it, but I wasn't on there to be social until more and more people were like, hey, especially being a rapper, like you need to be on Twitter. And I was like, really? Like, what is that going to do for me? People are like, oh, you should just give updates of what you're doing. And I'm like, well, most of it's after the fact. Like I wasn't in the frame of mind to be thinking, hey, got a show coming up. Let me put it on Twitter. I was like, no, I would put that on my website. I would put that on Facebook. And the last thing I was thinking was somebody was checking my social media to see where I was. Now, in retrospect, it's like, okay, that's how most people are actually using it. So I do say, okay, let me put my obligatory post on Twitter or Instagram. But I was saying to Bernard, I don't even add people on Twitter or Instagram unless I actually know them, or in this day and age, if I've met them virtually as well. I don't have like the 50,000 fans on Instagram like most rappers do. I have maybe 2,000 kind of in that range for most of my social media account. I mean, Facebook more because it's much more, I think it's longer, older, and there's more established people there. But Facebook, I tend to know the people less. Instagram, I know every single person who's on my Instagram. If I met them in the metaverse, if I met them in the web 2.0, it might be a little less, but I go through regularly and go, did I add anybody by mistake I didn't mean to add, and I just get rid of them whenever I can. So that's how I do it, and I feel it gives me more control because it's like if I think we've said this before. I think introverts thrive when we have a social circle that we know the people in it. If we know where we're going and we know who's in the circle, we're just as extroverted, if not more so, than some extroverts because that's when we're at our best. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, to your point, it's like, yeah, when you're, like I said about online friendship, dating. Okay, this is the image I always get. Like when you watch Independence Day and Will Smith and Jeff Goldblum, they fly up into the mothership and they're supposed to deliver the virus. And then that main alien who sees them realizes, wait, this is not one of our aliens. And they look at this big screen and it's got every ship laid out, and they click on it and it flips over to try to like see what the diagnostics are. That's how I feel like introverts are. We have Facebook, online dating. You got all these profiles and click, rotate. Who is this? Delete, move. So visually, there's something about the visual. Like the fact that I could see everybody's face like lined up and organized,
Mm,
straight lines almost. It's like,
mm.
okay, you. Whereas in person is obviously more organic. Like I say, it's 3 dimensional.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
you're
yeah.
dealing with curvature and sound and the unknown. And who is this person? I've seen your face, but I don't remember your name. But when it's like profiled and everything is right there, all the there's I guess the key words information.
Yeah,
There's something about introverts like information,
absolutely.
and
I,
even the
I
word in information has the word in. When something is inside,
right.
that's when we feel more comfortable because it's like, oh, I see your face, I see your name, I see your age, I see a description of who you are. I feel more comfortable that I have a grasp on who you are.
Mm, well put. One of my best friends in this world is my man Quo, and we started the Pro Quo show. And I've only known Quo for about, let's see, at first he made himself known to me probably in like 2011, and then in 2014 he came to one of my shows. So we met, contacted me. He was playing the wall like a typical introvert would do, right? Real quiet, but it was in a hip hop club, and he was kind of in his de facto hip hop mode, which for him may have been a little bit more incognito, just because he was playing that position. Um, when I went on to really meet Quo over the last couple of years, as we were starting the Pro Quo project, it was apparent to me that, boy, I was way off. He's a massive extrovert. He's one of the most extroverted, nicest people I know. Like, he is just super happy, loves people. He's had his issues and stuff like that. He's been hurt, he's been burned in the past and stuff like that. But he's super positive about people. Where I generally come from a place of, I think you suck until I know better. You know what I'm saying? I say it in Yo That's Pro, which by the way just came out. Yo That's Pro, guarded, shielded, thinking to being revealing meant, thinking to keeping it hard meant not being revealing. Well, I really never been hard inside my heart. I love people. I never want to tear them apart, but some kids are mean even before they turn teens. Maybe want to stick to myself and stick to my team, a small circle. All that's all introvert talk, except for the I love people. That might come off as like, yo, really, you do? You seem so standoffish and like you don't really, like, in social crowds, you're not there. But that's kind of how Quo was too, because he knows kind of the modus operandi of how you're supposed to be in social situations because of a trust factor. But once he's in like his circle, like, he is extremely gregarious. Like, he's the person who's going to go up to everyone, even if he doesn't meet them. He's like, yo, if he's not even known them before, he's like really extending the olive branch, really like that. Why I'm saying all this is his strategy as an artist is he will add everybody, because he's like, hey, I got to do it. And it's partly now in retrospect, I look at it, he's like, well, because you ain't doing it, like I'm have the policy you do. I got to know him. I got to know, I got to investigate. I got to ask the questions. Who were this? We had conflict about that. Like, the first major conflict we had is, I was like, bro, why are you adding these people? Like, you don't know these people. And he's like, well, what are you talking about? So we're speaking literally introvert, extrovert language. He's like, bro, they want to add us. That, like, we're making this group project. We got this album. Why wouldn't I add them? And I'm like, bro, yeah, but that's like fluffery. You don't know who they are. They could be like fake accounts. They could be all kinds of scam artists. He's like, yeah, but who cares? Like, I just went from like 300 people to like 3,000 like overnight. And I'm like, I don't
Right.
know, man. I'm not, and that really is the mindset difference. I think it's some in some occasion, but imagine that we were called um, Bernard and Pro as a duo, right? If we're called Bernard and Pro as a duo, we're not going to have those issues, but at the same time, we're going to be missing out because we don't have that person who's actually willing to go do that, through his social media accounts. Personally, that's what he was doing. My social media accounts, I'm doing the opposite. And then we have our Pro Quo accounts, which are just kind of in the middle. Um, I definitely need that, because I'm certainly not going to do that. He's Mr. Extend the olive branch, reach out and say hi to everybody, where I'm like, yo, if you come to me, I'm cool. Um, I'll be your best friend at the show. That is, for like while we're there, we talking music, we talking shop. Yeah, I'm great. But if I didn't make that connection, I'm not even adding you. Truth be told. So
Speaking of adding you, I forgot to tell you I did start the new room on Clubhouse.
Yeah,
So
I'm looking for it over here. Oh, there it is. There it is. Okay, I see it.
well, we didn't have so much tech stuff today.
It was so
Like
much.
I just realized my mic was set to not the interface. Well, I had
Mm,
switched it to test to see if y'all
mm,
could hear me, and then I didn't switch it back, so it's been on a laptop mic. So
mm.
y'all gonna
And
hear that laptop quality, which people don't probably care about, but you know.
right. Well, I don't have. See, I'm having. I mean, if I could show you from here, you can't even see because it's too bright. But it's like now the mic's working good, and I got the headphone jack in there. But then it just stopped. 1 2 1 2. It's like it's. I'm probably coming in real light right now. So I'm gonna switch it up one more time. You know what I'm gonna do? I got the solution. I'm gonna put these headphones through here. 1 2 1 2. There we go. Those headphones work on that mic. So I'm gonna put that right there, which can hear me. And then I'm gonna go to the cheap junky, old and busted, keeping it in the Will Smith metaphors and analogies. I'm going to new hotness over there, old and busted. We're gonna go right here. There we go. All right. Now we're functioning on full throttle.
All right.
What's up,
Quick
Clubhouse?
que- quick question before we get back into it. So I was trying to share this link on Facebook. This is not the same link you sent me though for other people to watch the stream. So
So right, the one I sent you would be to people, which would be like guests.
right.
If you want to share the link, you have to share it through one of the links that's like actually already shared, kind of deal. So, like in other words, you can go to. I can put it in the chat. So let me go to. Let's see if it's. I didn't actually check Twitter. Speaking of Twitter, let's see if it's on Twitter. Yeah. So we're on Twitter. So I'm gonna give you the. See if I can do the share. There's embed. Promote. Let's see what that does. No. Share arrow. There we go. Share tweet via copy link. There we go. Boy, that was harder than it needed to be. And I'm actually putting it in the chat, the regular chat. That's my Twitter one right there, which is probably as easy as any. You don't have to jump through many hoops to get to the Twitter one. YouTube, when I went on there, I wasn't finding the comment section that fast. So if you, same thing on Twitter. I'm not exactly 100% positive how Twitter gets down. Twitter's spooling a little bit right there on me. In LinkedIn, actually, LinkedIn is very simple. If people are on LinkedIn like that,
All right.
let me put the LinkedIn one here too. The LinkedIn one. So right when you go to the profile, what it does is it's like, you know, when you're looking at Facebook and you're looking at your set picture that you have on your page, on LinkedIn, that turns into the live stream. So it's actually pretty cool. And then if you click into that, then the comment section pops right up. I kind of like that one the best. So here is the LinkedIn. Boom. So yeah, I would use LinkedIn because Twitter, it's not very intuitive where to comment. LinkedIn, it's extremely. And then there's YouTube. If you go to YouTube,
so you got no Facebook one, or you maxed out
the
your
Facebook
Facebook?
one is the ones that normally would be there, but because we're like a minute late, I don't think it's restreaming to Facebook, or we're on like punishment, I think, for Facebook.
All right. Well, I'm not gonna worry about it because I haven't logged into LinkedIn in who knows how many years.
It says we're gonna go live, and oh, you know what? It is there. It is there. Sorry, it is live now. So yeah, we're like on punishment. All right. So yeah, so we can share to. If you go like 3 posts down on mine, because I did the repost, I like typed on my page, hey, we're live on YouTube. Hey, we're live on LinkedIn. Right below that, you'll see the broadcast of us there. And so people can see it there. So yeah, we're on Facebook. We're good now. Oh, and you know what I didn't do? Facebook defaults to friends only. I have to change it to public. See, that's something introverts never think about. Turning it from friends only to public. That's the default. So now we're public on my page. And so you should be public on your page as well, I think now. Is it showing your link now on your page or no?
Let me look.
You might have to refresh it. I had to refresh mine a few times. I'm looking on your page to see. It says join restream. Yeah, so you posted the join
Yeah.
restreams.
Yeah, I'm on there. All right. Looks like I'm on there. All right. Sorry, people, for the technical. But
Pros, pun intended. See what I did there?
so yeah, I mean, well, to your question or to your idea earlier about like what what your wife says, like okay, I'll tell you a story because you're saying your wife tells you like, look, if you're gonna be a burden, then don't even come out. Somebody said something similar to me once, and I was actually pretty annoyed by it. So it was like 2009 birthday weekend, and a part of me was like, oh man, it's birthday weekend. I kind of would like to do something with somebody, not just sit at home. So my friend was like, oh yeah, I'm going to Harrisonburg to this party. It was like just like an hour from here. And before we left, she's like, okay, look, I'm gonna tell you, like, I'm gonna be when I go to this party, I'm gonna be like around, so I'm not gonna be with you. So just prepare yourself. And I'm like, okay, like I know how to take care of myself. Like I'll be okay, mom. But I felt like something about the two personality energies, no matter how much each person is not in trying to impose on the other, it's like there's these two magnets that they just can't not, because I'm sitting there and I was just talking, like I wasn't like looking for her to pay attention to me. She was just there and I was like, oh, you're somebody I know and you're standing there. But I think she probably felt like, oh, does he feel alone? Does he have no one to talk to? So I
Right.
kind of got us. And she was like, look, I told you it was going to be. And I'm sitting there like, I know. I didn't say, like, I literally didn't say anything. I didn't say, hey, you've been with everybody. Or I didn't, I didn't do anything to intentionally make it seem like, well, you left me alone. And
Right.
I was just standing there. And maybe she just happened to be in the same vicinity. So she maybe thought I was, I don't know. I went over to where she was maybe, or we just happened to be there, but I wasn't signaling like I need you to be by my side kind of thing.
Mhm.
But she somehow felt like she needed to reiterate, I told you,
Well,
like, I know.
that's where the like teacher in me comes out because it's like, you think about the nonverbal communication that we sometimes ask for with our students who don't want to be called out on, right? You just have these certain like little codes with some of your students. And speaking of baseball umpiring too, the same thing. You can have signs. I mean, you can do that. I mean, my wife and I don't go that far because I've not usually needed, but I'll say like I'll come find you. Like, if I'm just kind of standing near you or whatever, it probably means that the people that I was around were weirding me out and I wanted to come find where you are. It isn't because it's like I want to leave or anything like that. It's just like
Right.
I just, we're coming back to the safety zone. And normally I'll come over and I will act a little excited in my gestures. I'll be like, I'll be like, hey, like what's going on? She'll be like, hey, here's my husband, which is code for her, like he's in a good mood. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, I've definitely had the talking to. This isn't once or twice, and it isn't just her, to be fair. It's just something that I think any extrovert, significant other, or friend that knows you well enough is going to point out and say, I feel that. I feel when we go out, I know that it can be a little weird. I know people worse than me, and I know what it looks like when I see two people out that are the same way as my wife and I. Where there's one person who is definitely the more gregarious one of the bunch, and the other person, it's like, okay, that might look a little interesting, and I know how that can come off. And you can read the body language usually more, I feel, from the extrovert because you can see the uncomfortableness that they have with it. The introvert's kind of hard to read. And that's the whole thing. It's like it's kind of hard to
Right.
read. I look like I'm generally miserable. I get that. Everyone tells me that all the time. So now I go out of my way to not look as miserable, especially to my wife, to let her know I'm fine. And if I
Right.
keep in that mode, that probably means, crap, he is miserable. Um, and it is going to be a mad time if I walk up and I go, so we going so? You know?
But it just okay. There's two learning points that I think are takeaways for people from this party example I use. One, if you're telling your introverted friend like, "Hey, when we go out, like I got to do me," that's your version of what the introvert is saying. Like, "Hey, when I'm at home and I say don't call me or don't mess with me, I'm trying to do me." Like you need to remember that for yourself. So when you're like, oh, how come this person doesn't respond? They don't call me. How come they want to be alone? It's like, how come when you go to the party, you want to talk to everybody? I mean, it's like you're basically asking the question that about someone's core, way they get their energy, their core way they are, that you never question yourself, right? Like you don't think when I go to a party and I want to talk to everyone, there's anything wrong with that. You're like, that's me being me. And I don't want to be infringed upon. I don't want someone to feel like I have to keep up with someone and take care of them. It's like, so remember that. I think the other thing is, I mean, again, like I always go back to self-awareness because this happens so often too. Like you're saying, it's the hard to read thing. But I mean, somebody told me that once, like, you're hard to read. I said, well, you're not Bernard literate. So there's there's a literacy that comes with this. Like number one, like if you say I'm hard to read, well then observe and pay attention and know, like I'm not imposing myself on you. I'm actually unimposing. Like I'm not doing anything.
Yeah, my wife can definitely read me now. There's no doubt.
So when somebody says, I think so for someone who's very pro-literate, lyrical. So when somebody says like, hey, I'm not going to take care of you, or I want to go be with my friends, there also, I think, comes with that natural outgoingness that they read, oh, this person might feel alone, and that makes me like, it's like they can't not suck that energy, like, oh, this person is alone, they're not connected, they're not talking. They probably feel better if they saw you talking. Oh, good, they're having a good time. Good, I can let my mind go. So they see you and they're like, I need to take care of this person. And that's I think that's a fundamental difference. It's like, I don't need you to take care of me. I think that's the thing a lot of extroverted people don't get. They think like, but if I was alone, I'd want someone to come talk to me because I'd be lonely. The introvert's like, no, if I was alone, I'd want to stay alone and I want somebody to come and bother me. So although your like tentacles are going out to this person, like, oh, I'm feeling what you're feeling, like that's on you. Like that's the thing that people like, that's your perception or your thing. Like you need to handle your own feeling about that and say maybe they're okay. And or maybe they're not, but that's their responsibility to take. Like I told, like, yeah, you told me I'm coming to this party, I'm gonna be out there. I heard, I processed, I said yes, I knew what I was getting myself into. I wasn't just saying it to say okay, and then hopefully you'll come to my rescue. Like I came with the awareness of what I was doing. And so if I'm sitting on the couch by myself and I'm miserable, guess whose fault that is? Me. So I can deal with my own consequences. And I wouldn't. I was sitting on the couch. Somebody started talking to me. I was like, hey, what's up? They were like, hey, you know, blah, blah, blah. They started a conversation with me because they saw me sitting there. I talked to them a little bit, but I wasn't waiting for them to like come rescue me. So I think that's one thing that the extroverted person really needs to get is like, you have your own thing and you got to really be aware of, am I projecting this onto them thinking that they are lonely and they need my help? It's like, they may be telling you the truth. I'm good.
You know, I was thinking about this too. It's not just, we keep using the party analogy. Oh, let me turn the, yeah, that's good. I was typing a couple of things here too. A couple of people love the show. It's not just the party analogy. There's another one too. It's when I'm in tourism mode, when we're traveling or we're going to like, a few weeks ago, we went to a museum. This is something I want to point out. My favorite time, obviously, I'm in the car with my family. I'm leaving with my family. I'm there with my family. We're probably going to eat lunch together with my family. But my favorite time is when we get to split up and go do stuff by ourselves. Like I love that. That's the greatest time there is. Like when, like, hey, can I just go explore by myself? Which means a lot of things, because it means the things that you're going to pick out as your favorite parts may be different than mine. Mine usually will be the ones that do have less people. I acknowledge that. It'll usually be the one where there's more reading. I was there last week. I was reading. They had everything about dinosaurs, everything about evolution, everything about space, how rocks are turned into, like how you can timestamp things, right? This is all stuff in my wheelhouse. I'm reading every one of these things intently. And I'm loving the fact there's nobody around me when I'm reading it because everyone's going to check out the semi-precious gemstones and stuff. That's all cool. I'm going to get to that. But there's like 600 people over there looking at the Hope Diamond. I'm reading about how to carbon half date logs. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And I'm reading like Rings in the Trees and stuff, and I'm like, yo, this is cool. And there's a little video that's like from 1987 in there. You hit the big fat button. It's like the black and white movie almost. It wasn't black and white, but it was so grainy it might as well have been. And they're like, this is a rock crusher. And I'm like, yo, this is great. I get to watch the video. I was off in a little nook, my favorite thing to do, and I was watching this thing on volcanoes. My son was with my wife at the time. And then he came around. He's like, Daddy. He's like, oh, it's volcano. He loves volcanoes. So now I'm with my son. I'm great. I'm with my son. Cool. Perfect. I'm watching about volcanoes and I'm just chilling here, getting my breath while everyone else is doing their mass conglomeration thing. And I'm like, give me that time. Give me a half hour, pretty much in every event. But to me, it's like the built-in timeout when we get to, that's why I like going to museums or traveling when I'm with a family or group situation. Yo, my favorite time of the day is even in my head going, I can't wait till I get to be by myself at this place exploring. I love doing something intellectual and really getting to pay attention to it. And I love doing that by myself so I can actually get to read. And again, it isn't because I want to be alone. It's because being alone affords me the opportunity to do everything. It's not because I'm antisocial. It's not like, oh, there's people, I'm scared of them. It's like, oh, there's those people that are going to bother me is what I'm thinking. Is what I'm thinking. It's not that I don't like people. I do. When they're on my terms, I get to meet them. I do default to the fact, like I said earlier, that my safety valve is you're probably going to let me down. I've said this in many race rooms too. I've been in a lot of race rooms that are, on Clubhouse, whatever, and there'll be issues of race, whatever. And I'm like, someone will ask me my opinion, and I'm like, having been around a lot of white people my entire life, my general default is I'm waiting for you to disappoint me. It's just like I use that example as well as people to be in it talking about these rooms and they'll be like, is racism a thing and blah blah blah, and like what's wrong with white people, what's wrong with black people, and I'm usually sitting in the room going, well, let me speak for the white people. Generally I'm waiting for the point to be like, oh, there's the patty, right? Like the patty just came out of the otherwise person who doesn't seem patty. I'm not disappointed. I expected you to be a patty, right? And it's the same analogy when I'm in a crowd. It's except minus the race thing. I'm in a crowd and I'm like, I'm expecting you to bother me. I'm expecting you to make my life miserable, even though you're not trying to. It's not like you're trying to be a bad person. It's just you're going to take me away from what it is that I'm trying to do.
Right.
And or if I'm in a group of 5 or 6, there's going to be someone that says some dumb stuff and makes me
Right.
feel uncomfortable in that group scenario. And again, it's not because I dislike people. I dislike the dumb people. I dislike the people that are me the whole time that don't need to be. Like we were talking off before we started. Give it a breath. Give it a second.
Right.
Before you let your extrovert out. Just chill for a minute, observe the scenery, smell the flowers. And if I don't get the chance to do that myself, then I get grumpy. And now, I don't want to be there. And I'm like, this is going to stink. I can't wait to go home, I can go home and control my domain. And, it sounds like control freak. And in a way it is. And I'm cool with saying that. It's like, I need to control things when you're not allowing me to do the kind of stuff that my agenda is set on. I'm cool with saying that. Like my agenda in the day is to either have an hour to watch the show I want, an hour to read what I want, an hour to write what I want. And if you're taking me away from that and not adding value into what it is that I'm doing, then I can't wait to get to that. And so I'm going to try to control my situation so I can go call that me. Cool. But if you're bringing some incredible conversation into it, then I can put all that on delay and I'm good.
Right. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff to get into. I think. Okay, well, I guess the solutions, because I'm always about, okay, what's the solutions? So as we always talk about balance, right? Everybody has to tap into that other yin yang side that they're not used to doing. If you're a very organized person, you probably need to hang around some more loose people, to loosen you up. If you're a loose person, you probably need to hang around some more organized people to get your organization together, because you're not going to naturally do those things. So if you're an introverted person and you never hang around anyone who's extroverted, like you're never going to be shaped in that way to like tap into that part of yourself, because you just have to experience it. There's no reading a book. You can't just read a book. That's what the introvert would want to do. Let's read a book on extroverts. All right, I got it. Done. All right, I know how to do it. It's like, nah, there's an experiential, emotional part that just has to be lived. You just have to feel it, right? And the extroverted person was like, oh, I know what I'll do. I'll
There's
go
no
talk to the
extroverted
introvert.
manual for introverts, you're saying?
Yeah, pretty much. And for the extrovert, same thing. They're probably like, I know what I'll do. I'll go talk to the person. And the introvert's like, no, go read. Like, go do the opposite thing. Like, there was a guy who I knew, like, I mean, he had a whole lot of problems. So this is a very unique situation. But still, he would always want to go to lunch. And I was like, I don't want to go to lunch. But then I would go because he really needed friend. Like, he was so lonely.
Mm-hmm.
And so we would sit there and he would just talk about same stuff. And I said, sometimes it'd be nice if you could talk about what I like to talk about. I said, what if you just went and read an article at the library? He was like, oh, I don't think you should have to do that. Like, I think you should be able to talk about it in the moment. And I was like, it's not going to happen with you, though. It's not like you think about these things to talk about in the moment.
Right. You don't
You
have
need
that
to go
in the
prime
data set.
yourself with some
Right.
other information to have ready loaded to be like, oh, maybe Bernard will like this. So yeah, you can't use your normal way of interacting and think you're going to become more like the other way.
Right.
You can't. I'm gonna be more talkative to introverts. It's like, yeah, obviously you should talk to introverts and get to know them and understand them, but you don't, by going up and talking to them like you talk to your other friends, you're not going to get the same kind of experience and shaping yourself into that way. It's like you have to like become the other person in a sense, which is obviously going to be hard because who wants to be like someone else? Who wants to do what's the opposite?
Yeah.
Who wants to do the opposite of their nature? So I brought that up because, I was thinking about like, well, what happens in the mind of someone like in your situation where you're like, I want to go be by myself. Someone else who is more extroverted.
Before I even get there.
But someone who's more extroverted might feel like, oh, how could this person want to be alone? Or how could they want to leave me? And you're in your mind, you're saying, I'm not trying to leave you or go be alone in the way you think. It was like, I'm going to do this thing I have my mind set on. I've been waiting to do it. I'm so excited. I'm like singular focused. But they might take it from the extroverted point of view of, well, I wouldn't do that to my friends. Like I'd ask them, like, well, what do you want to do? What do you want to do this together? There's a lot of togetherness. So if you're not tapping into, like I said, if you're not getting your taste of that introverted way, you're going to take it as rejection or you're going to take it as an insult. Whereas if you started to shape yourself more to the other way of being, you're going to be like, oh, okay, I get it now. They're not doing that against me. But also, the point I always love to make to people is, like I said, they have their own version of that. So, for instance, like none of us are all the same thing all the time. Extroverts have a way of being introverted. Like if I just came over to your house at midnight, you might be like, Bernard, what are you doing here? Hey, you said we're friends. We come over anytime. You be like, well, Bernard, like, yes, but I've known Sarah for 20 years. Yeah, I'll let her do that because we go way back and we've been through a lot. I was like, but I thought we were friends. Like it's just open. They'd be like, no, leave me alone. I want to be alone. I want to be by myself. So they have a way. Everybody has their way of being introverted, extroverted, and you don't know it until you like get to know them personally. But you have to be aware that you have your own version of that thing.
Yeah. Tree sent me a video. It's an introvert rap song, or it's like a sing song. It's not really a rap song. They made a song about what it's like being an introvert. And I'll probably play it at the end because it'll probably cut the broadcast. And at the end, I won't care. But we'll see if we can sneak it through the powers that be of Facebook and YouTube and all that kind of stuff. But they were talking about a lot of these same points in the video. They were going through like introverts, and they were like basically characterizing introverts, and they're like talking about a lot of things we've mentioned, like sweatpants, chilling in the house, watching a movie. And I'm thinking about how much of this sounds like my wife during COVID, and it's like, I think it's really just to your point that extroverts certainly have an introverted side. It's nobody's all one or the other. And my wife has definitely found some of her introvert. I've heard her say it. We've talked about this. We've talked about it in relationship to even what we're saying. She'll talk and say, like, oh, there's some things though. This is sort of an offshoot of where we're taking this. But I think it's an offshoot that's necessary and makes a lot of sense. So coming into the pandemic, my wife was over the top worried about it. So was I. We're worried about me for different reasons. And as it got into it, she kept saying things like, oh, it'd be cool to see an adult. You know what I mean? Like, it'd be cool because she's her world is external, and she's like, oh man, and the longing for that from her was there. It was, I mean, I can admit it was zero for me, like zero, and that's where, like, I'm not a classic introvert, meaning that, we've talked about this in our scales, and people out there, if you haven't taken the test, there's tests out there you can take. We're just talking about some of those. I'm like in the 30% range, right? Like 30% extrovert tendencies, 70% introvert. I'm definitely not like 90-10, right? And it's because I live in an extroverted face world. Today, perfect example, I'm doing the baseball umpiring thing again. There's 30 potential actual baseball umpires out there. We're doing this training clinic thing. I'm thinking about this show, and I'm thinking about all these things. I'm on the external side. I'm on the outer limit of the circle. I don't have any friends in the group, and I'm attracted to things that I don't actually have friends in the group. I'm cool with being the only person there who doesn't know anyone. I feel like I'm always in situations where I'm the only person who doesn't know anyone, and I like that. But I know, we talked about this last week too. I know that it's like the job interview. You're going to get booked games from these people there, and people want to have a relationship with you. So I'm actually standing back with some of the umpires who are doing the coaching, helping us rookie umpires out, right? And they're just talking and laughing. So I'm just kind of chilling next to them. I'm trying not to go far away. Normally I would drift and just be doing my thing. I'm actually watching, trying to figure out what the next move is. They're socializing and talking. So I actually backed up and I listened. I started talking, and one of them said something about what's the area of the box, right? They're talking about there. And I was like, they mean it's like a math question, and we were kidding about it. And I was like, I'm actually an associate professor in mathematics. And they're like, oh, dope. And because I announced it, there were like 4 people there. 1 in 4 is always going to kind of be like someone who does like math. It was like, oh yeah, I'm an engineer, blah, blah. Before you know what he's going on, talking about all stuff in my wheelhouse, talking about quantum mechanics. He's just excited that I'm in his world, So he's talking about something he just figured out, literally, about we're on the baseball field, and he's talking about something he just figured out about Pythagorean theorem. And I'm like, oh, I made a video about that actually. And in the video, if you were to see me in the video, I look like the most extroverted human being ever.
Right.
But it's because the camera's on. I knew I had to be, just like I know I have to be at that baseball game, or else I'm never going to get booked. Truth be told, when you're really paying attention to me, you notice I'm the dude with no friends there. I'm the one in the outer circle. I'm chilling. I'm watching what's going on. I'm not talking. I'm not loud. And I sneak off the field when it's time. I was trying to get to here. I'm trying to sneak off the field to go. And they're all doing their extra talking. And they were like, go. And I'm out, And it's like, for my wife, who would long for the social circles, I was looking at all the extroverts. It's very clear to me who the extroverted baseball umpires are. Very clear. And they're trying to talk longer and stay longer in the social circle. You can see it. They're like, yo, we need this time. They're bonding with their baseball friend. They're talking baseball. We even got into a conversation with the umpire. They were talking about, hey, you can have baseball talk when you're out there with your partner out there in the field. We're talking about this guy who liked engineering and math. He goes, I was actually having a math conversation with this guy in between, and one of the base runners heard. I was like, oh, what are you guys talking about? I've never heard anybody talking math and science before. And I'm like, I'm excited. I'm like, yo, this is great. I want to work with these guys, right? So I'm like, this could be my pod. And it's funny how when you hear someone in the conversational lane, you saying like to your friend who you needed to give homework to, I know I didn't need to give this guy homework. I could talk with this dude. Like, I'm like, yo, he's into this stuff. He was talking about the weirdness of quantum mechanics. I'm like, yo, like, you talking to a dude, like, that's what I do. And shout out to, by the way, speaking of what we do, shout out to Cedric, he's got a company called Ancient Baby Brand. He's on Clubhouse. He's dope. I've heard him speak in a lot of rooms. The stuff he's doing is crazy. He's got some scholarship activity out there. Check him out if you get a chance. That's Cedric Scott over there. Ancient Baby Brand, one of the coolest names of a company that you'll ever hear. Ancient Baby Brand, right? But yeah, it's just the pandemic has hit people differently. You see the after effects, the people longing for the social circles. I still don't have that feeling. I don't.
Right.
Just being honest, I don't have that need to be social. What I do have the need for is I want to see club shows come back. Honestly, I got to do one last week. I was excited by it because it's what I love to do, but it's like, as far as like, I want to go have a giant pizza party at the restaurant. It's like, that's just not me, like, I don't need that. This is great. Right now, the zone we're in, there's less people dying. There's not a lot of social stuff going on. I can still stay. The expectation is for the rest of my day on a Sunday, I can stay home and get I was doing music in the studio. I was right here. Made 2 songs yesterday. Finished them. I'm in my zone. G. I'm like,
Right.
this is this is good. And my wife, even though she was like, yo, I gotta go do stuff, like early on, she started coming around. She started coming around. She's like, yo, I basically what she's saying is I've never seen it from your world before. And I
Mm,
realize all the stuff that actually the benefits there are of having a little bit more
mm,
mindset. You know?
mm. Man, all right, let's take it there because I think this is an interesting kind of layer to peel off because yeah, you hear people having this sort of revelation of like, oh man, like I like being alone or I didn't realize it, and I guess it's just so strange to me that for the first time people are like, oh wow, maybe I am more introverted than I thought I was because they were
Mm.
forced to be, or man, yeah, I didn't realize that this had its own benefits, which is just in some ways kind of depressing because you're like, so there's a whole group of people out there who are this way and you're just now like paying attention to them. But there's something there where it's like when people peel that layer back and they're like, okay, there's this other kind of energy, right? I guess part of me says, well, what is it about it that you were afraid of to begin with? Maybe it's like the conversely on our point, they're like, why are you afraid to like come out? Like it's people, right? And so maybe we're thinking like, why are you afraid to go in? It's you, right? I mean, that's how I feel. It's like I want to go inward because I get to know me more, and there's richness, treasures of myself that I know are worthy of being discovered.
You
And
use
I
the word
think
fear though, but do you think it's fear? Do you think that the extroverts are fear
I think
based?
it's a fear of being alone. I think
Hmm.
there's a fear of being alone and fear of being bored. I think they think here's what I think for real. I think because I see this so much. I think from what I've observed and studied in conversations and books, I think the extroverts really come alive in the group.
Right.
It's like when they come in the group, it's almost like Voltron, Power Rangers. It's
Absolutely.
like now I see myself in context. Like I notice how some people wouldn't speak. It's like my friends describe me as, or this is my like. They often go more talk about what they reflect off of their friends. So they like reflect off of 10 people, and the person tells them who they are, and they're like, "Yeah, thanks, guys. You make me feel." Where the introverts like, "No, I self-reflect and I tell me
Mhm.
who I am."
Mhm. Mhm.
So I think the introvert is like, yo, I'm dope. Like I'm so dope. I'm amazing. I'm gonna talk to me, and I like me. That's why I'm gonna go be off with me.
Mm.
I think the extrovert's like, yo, y'all are dope. You're dope. You're dope. I love my friends. I love my family. I love my community. Like it always interests me how people who are more outgoing, people oriented, they big up their like friends. Like they
Well,
celebrate their community and like
hmm.
or like, I remember one time I met this guy at the bus station. He was like, "Look, these is 2 friends I just made." Like he literally said, "I made," and I was like, "Yo, you made them? Like you created them?" So I told you, I think they see people as projects. They're like, "Yo, I just
Right.
made 2 friends." So I think the extrovert is more like,
To me, it's a much
uh,
longer process. That you don't make a friend at the bus stop. It's like
I
that's step one of five. You know what I'm
I think
saying?
so. I think the extrovert is like, "Yo, everyone else is dope, and I'm dope when I'm with them." And so
Mm.
I think they find
Ooh, that's
more
that's an insight.
like I think they find more like richness in others than they do in
Yeah.
themselves.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think the introvert is like, no, I find more richness in myself than I do in others. So I think the
I'm with
fear comes where it's like, yo, if I'm just by myself alone, like I'm going to be bored with me.
And
And
I
I'm
have no,
afraid that I'm not interesting.
hmm, I have no fear. Um, Quite honestly, I don't say this to sound like and um, what's up, Trinia? How are you? See you in Clubhouse. I don't. Sometimes I've heard myself say this the last like year, um, mostly in conversations with just a few select people. I definitely said this to my wife. We were talking about my wife is scared of snakes. I don't actually have many fears at this
Right.
stage of my life. I truly don't. I don't mean to sound like the tough guy or anything like that, but it's like I'm not scared of ghosts. I'm not scared of evil. I'm not scared of. I'm not dumb either. I mean, if I see some crazy people or whatever, I'm gonna walk the other way, you know. But it's
Right.
like that could be a problem. But that's different. Fear to me is something that's debilitating. It's like, oh man, like I'm scared. I'm getting anxious over it. I have been anxious in the past about taking flights or whatever. I'm not even bad with flights these days. Somewhere I turn the corner in terms of my approach about scaredness, right? Like I'm not scared to go into a social situation ever. I'm never scared to be in a social situation. I'm anticipating that I'm not going to like it, which is a little bit different than like I'm saying I'm not going to love this situation. So what are my outs? What am I, it's like I also organize active shooter training for my work, right? Like I'm doing that right now. I'm not scared that a shooter's going to come in. I'm just like,
Right.
yeah, this is what we need to do in case it's. I'm not sitting and going, oh my gosh, what's going to happen? And I know people who are like that. They're like, I can't be in this. I have a bunch of people I work with right now that we're in a new environment. They're like, yo, like I'm not like physically scared of
Right.
this kind of things. And I used to be when I was younger. I did used to be, and this is where I wanted to bring it back to into the social context. When with friends, when I was younger, I did used to say almost like fear feels like a negative. I had a negative feeling, whereas like I hope I can make some friends. Where it was like I knew I was awkward. I knew that I was having to, and I felt a social pressure to have some friends. Like I felt like my parents were going to ask me, "Did you make any friends today?" Or like, teachers going to ask me or whatever, and I'm like, "What's wrong with me? Like I don't have a lot of friends." It's the opposite now. Now that I'm older, I'm like, I think you realize your time is shorter every day as you get older, right? You're like, man, I wish I enjoyed myself as much as I enjoy myself now. Like, I'm thinking to myself, it's depressing. I'm like, there's not enough moments in the rest of my life where I can have time to myself to keep investigating and reading and writing and working. Like, I love making music so much that I'm like, I don't know when I can squeeze in more time to do this. Like I'm really milking that cow as much as I can to be by myself, think, record, write, investigate the rest of the world that I like, right? That is very solo or maybe a handful of people at most. When I was young, it was the opposite. I was like, I'm scared that I'm not going to have any friends and that there's something wrong with me. And I never
Mm,
enjoyed my own company. I enjoyed some of the things I was
interesting.
doing when I was younger. Don't get me wrong. I enjoyed the stuff that I was doing, but I had this fear or debilitating kind of aspect that like I must be awkward because I'm doing this stuff by myself. And it's
Right.
like, why am I not like, and I can name some of my friends who are social friends. And I'm like, why aren't I more like them? You know, I'm not like that now.
Well, yeah. Let me clarify. I say fear. Okay. I think primarily word fear is there right now because when you're talking about the pandemic was definitely like a unique situation.
Of
Well,
course,
like
yeah,
we keep talking about like it's the past, the pandemic that we're
yeah,
still
yeah.
in.
The ongoing pandemic.
Because I think when you're talking, okay, so here's the difference, right? If you're dealing with a culture that has not gone inward on any significant level or for any significant amount of time, that I think brought in fear because that led to things like, oh no, what if I'm alone and then I get depressed and then I get suicidal kind of fear. Like that's different than just like, oh, what if I'm alone and I'm at the party? Like these had like stronger implications of like, oh no, like I'm detached from people who I usually am very dependent upon all of the time. Like I can just go reach out and they're there. Or this Saturday, I'm gonna go to the winery. Or I'm gonna call my friend. So for those people, it was like a drastic swing of like, it's like you were with people, now you're with nobody. So maybe for them, it was more of a fear in the sense of this has heavy, weighty implications.
Mm,
But when we're talking about like the social things, like I can't say that I've never been afraid. Like, I mean, like you're saying, like to me, I guess it's more like, yeah, it's anxious slash dread, like I already know I'm gonna come in this situation and there's gonna be somebody who's gonna do something and I'm gonna be like, why did I come out and why am I doing this to myself? So it's not like fear, like because yeah, to me, because fear, I guess some people think of fear as something that prevents them from doing something altogether. I
mm,
guess I just think about fear as just like you're gonna feel fear, period. Like it doesn't mean it stops you, but you're still gonna feel the anxiousness, the fear, or whatever.
mm,
So I think um I was saying, yeah, I think for the extroverted person, especially with something like the pandemic, I think that fear of loneliness and boredom were looming over their head. Whereas like
mm.
we were talking about ourselves, like I was like, yo, we don't have to go to work and I'm getting paid.
Right.
I just woke up and I'm just watching videos, and I got
Just spend my whole
scripts
life.
and I got music. I was like, yo, this is a gift.
Yep.
So I was nowhere. I was not afraid of being bored, lonely, and I was not afraid of like how long we were going to be gone. I was like, we get to go through virtual school. Like every day, it was like, we're going to be off for a week. We're going to be off for 2 weeks. We're going to be off for the next month. We're going to be off for the rest of the school year. I was just like, oh my goodness, what like? So I think when you're very much have a person who spends time with yourself, the idea of being alone is a gift because you're like, great, now I have more opportunity to spend more time with myself because you've gotten to know yourself and you like yourself. I can imagine for the extrovert, it's the opposite. If we say, hey, we're gonna cancel all the meetings at school and we're gonna have like a social hour every day, like I get to go socialize with my friends.
Right.
Like the people who they find pleasure in, they want to spend more time with. It just happens to be for the introvert, we want to spend more time with ourselves because that's the person who we spend the most
Yeah.
time with and have the most pleasure in.
Yeah. Yeah. I've talked to so many in my world, uh, colleagues that have expressed when the when the pandemic started and started impacting classes, that they were depressed about the fact that they wouldn't be able to teach their classes in person. Um, I never felt that, and
Right.
hearing that was interesting. Like, and quite honestly, that wasn't what I was hearing from students. I mean, students have liked the fact that we hear a lot about the lack of engagement, the off cameras, those kind of things. I get that, and that's tricky. There's a lot of pros and cons to that kind of stuff. And you've heard me say it before. If you weren't engaging before the pandemic, you're not going to be engaging after. You're going to be worse.
Right.
You're not engaging when you have a physical class. Good luck with that online, right? Unless you're really doing some self help over that time, or and really, like, I got some ideas on that. Like, come talk to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't have all of them, but I'll share a few things that I think
Right.
could help make your class a little bit more engaging. I've never had any problem making my actual live classes relatively engaging in what most people would say is a discipline that is not engaging, right? So maybe I got a couple things for you. Losing the student physical interaction kind of portion, or make it more general if people aren't in education like we are, just losing that interaction with the colleagues. Hearing other colleagues say that was depressing. Like, I didn't care that I didn't see any of the employees that I work with face to face.
Right.
Like, it's not like I wasn't seeing them we just had a meeting the other day that was virtual. We had one of our first ones that we did. We had an event that I helped organize at my institution. And the people I was organizing with, I was like, hey, just so you know, no one's going to be here. And they were like, no, we just want to do the event. They did it in our auditorium. And it was like a PD event that I did in collaboration with another part of my school. And I was looking forward to doing this, right? Because I haven't seen those particular people that I work with in a while. And they got some dope stuff to share. And I was like, yo, this would be great. I can't wait to do it. Set the thing up. And I'm like, just so you know, there's going to be like 6 people. And they were like, really? That few? And I'm like, well, there's no one at a campus except the classes that have to teach in person, which is relatively few. And no one's coming out of their house. I couldn't fathom that people were going to leave their house when they don't have to come to campus and just come for this physical PD event. And I was right? There was like 5 or 6 people.
Right.
And most of those people were people who do occasionally at least work in the building. And they're like, oh, I'll come in on Tuesday, even though it's a day I don't usually come in and check this. Actually, Wednesday. Sorry, it was a Wednesday event. So hearing that kind of language from people and those sentiments from faculty and from staff, it tells you a lot about the mindset of those particular people. And, I think about it now more and more as we do this kind of stuff. I'm thinking in retrospect, I'm like, oh, I never really thought much about people that I worked with all the time, other than, do they irritate me or not? Right. I never really thought about it in context. Oh, this is that irritating extrovert. But now I have to admit that I do. I'm thinking like, and I got a colleague. It's funny. We were talking about another colleague who has some habits that are maybe irritating. It's whatever. And it's funny. I'm thinking from this lens, and I'm like, it's an extrovert. It's an extrovert. And what is irritating about it to me? And a lot of times when we communicate what's irritating to us about another person, sometimes it's those social quirks and hangups that they have, or they don't know how they broadcast. They don't
Right.
actually know how they come off. And so I say now, more as the mature adult now, I say they don't care. And to me, that's an extrovert thing. I feel like introverts do care how they come off in social circles, sometimes too much. So it can be, again, I'm using that debilitating word. It sometimes can be debilitating. You're like, oh, all eyes are on me. Like, let me think about it. For the people who are like that, I'm not totally like that at this stage of my life. I'm like, I kind of know how I come off generally. I think I have a pretty good self-awareness, and I'm very critical of it for others. Like, if I have a one-on-one with you, I'm going to say, hey, I just want to tell you like how you're coming off. Like, I'm always aware how you're coming off. Right? Like, I can tell you about it. I'd be like, look, it's just, the thing you do, the nervous twitch you have there when you're tapping your finger on the desk all day. I hear that from 30 feet away, bro. And I'm like, what do you think your class is thinking when you're up there and you're tapping your toe every second while someone's talking? I'm like, well, you cut that out. What's wrong with you? Like, but I wonder if some of these things are looking at it from like, as an introvert, I would never do the extroverted, irritating thing that you're doing, or the hoverers, the people that come in and they just want to like hug up on you and be all over the students. I'm like, yo, I'm so not a helicopter. I'm not a helicopter parent. I'm not a hoverer.
Right.
And I see the hoverers and I'm like, oh, those are the people that need the group hug all the time. It's like you're irritating me, bro. Give them some space, So if I'm doing a one-on-one, I'm saying it in a nice professional way. I'm like, hey, you might want to think about your physical spacing. This is something we now get to at least talk about now.
Right.
Yeah. But I'm like, why are you all up on them? And the touchy-feely, like, I'm not a touchy-feely person. I'm just not. And it's like the touchy-feely educators, this always weirded me out anyways, right? But if you ever touch me and you're an employee of a place that I go into, I'm like, what in the world is wrong with you? Like if I know you, like if I met you twice, that's totally different, right? If you come with me, like, hey, and you'll put your hand on my shoulder, it's still a little but I'm like, you have license to maybe do that. You know what I'm saying? Because you had that kind of interaction. But the people that do that on the first time and the people that like that in the education space, I'm like, you gotta know how you're coming off. Half the world is like us. We're like, you came into my inner sanctum and you know what I'm saying? Like, so like this thing has been great. And I'm like, yo, think about your distance. You know what I'm saying? You should really be thinking about all the time.
Right.
Did you have a conversation with that student to say that they're cool with you being up in there like that?
Well, when the pandemic first started, I put one of my word plays on Facebook, and it was social distancing, but it was die-stancing. Die-stancing. So it's like dialogue is two people talking. So it's like a dis-stance is a die-stance.
You do Wordle.
I think about it sometimes, and then I don't do it.
Man, I've done 4, and I'm very late on the bus. I need to see your Wordle scores, bro. I need to. I have a feeling you're gonna be on road 2, quite a lot. So you should do videos of you doing Wordle and repost those. That would be like cool. Like, Bernard just got it before it's even posted. Like, I was doing a sentence diagram of this one. I already came up with this one.
I should just make my own word game.
Yeah,
just
absolutely.
like
Bernard.
I tried to get my wordplay thing to catch on. Like, I would post my word plays on Facebook, and people I'd be like, yo, what do you think the definition of this word is? Nobody wanted to play along.
People ain't that deep, bro. You know how it is. You know how it is as a lyricist. It's like,
I mean, I learn more every day that yes, it's a lonely world. But yeah, just the word die-stancing is like 2 stances. Die-stance.
Right.
And it had a little diagram. I should pull it.
I like that. I like that.
Let me see if I can find it.
It's totally not valid, but it's totally valid, if you know what I mean. You know what I'm saying? Totally not valid in the epistemology, but totally valid in the meaning. Yeah.
I mean, it's literally in the word. It's a die-stance.
Right. Again, totally not intended, but let's make good use of it. Die-stance. I do that with words a lot of times. So I'm trying to remember them. I break them apart in a totally different way. And I'm like, well, I know that's not what it means, but that's how it works for me.
I mean, I'd be curious to see the etymology of it, because it looks like there's a die stance. It's 2 stances.
Epistemology. I said the epistemology.
I'm trying to scroll back, see if I can see. Wait, this was I guess 2020. Where was it? But to your point, I was gonna say, okay, this is why I always go to, not just because I said we always talk about introvert, extrovert, but I always say it's about who is your core identity as a human, because The thing that I'm thinking about with what you're saying about coworkers, right? Same thing. I would hear people on a Zoom call be like, "Oh, I missed you all so much," and I was just like, I was just like, I was like, I don't have a response to that because I
It
don't I
does
don't
not
share
compute.
I don't share those same feelings
Does
because
not compute.
I mean I just don't I just don't miss I just don't miss you. I'm sorry, or I'm not sorry.
Missing is
Um,
not high in my category ever. It's never been like if I could call you on the phone, I'm like, yo,
right.
there it is. Saw you on a video. I don't need to be in your space. You know what I'm saying? To like call me an insensitive futurist or whatever, but I'm like, I'm good with the virtual world, you know?
Is my screen showing anything
Yeah,
yet?
here it is.
And I'm going. Oh,
Oops.
look, we're meta. No, that was right. That was. I just haven't clicked over. All right, so now.
All right. Let me get rid of the our overlay here. So we can see that a little better. Get rid of this too. Dice dancing. Yes.
But yeah, it's so perfect. It's just like
They look like they're getting ready to b-boy. They're like going bust the move.
yeah, my friend Richard, he does some wordplay. He posted this dancing.
How are they doing that with their body? They get the back leg. They get the wow. They got the right arm is back. The left arm's up front, but the right leg is front. Ooh, that's complex right there. It's on the guy on the right. I'm looking at or the thing on the right. I guess to keep it gender neutral because it is gender neutral. The person on the right, person on the left switched it up, but
Yeah.
didn't switch up the legs though. But that's wild. It's the little things. That's how you can die dancing if you're not careful. Get your leg in a pretzel.
Oh,
Well,
look at that meta. Look at that metaverse. So yeah. So to your point, it's like I think that's part of the problem that introverts face on a daily is this. I call it this: the absorption assumption. This kind of I feel the loneliness that we haven't been able to connect. So I assume that you also feel that loneliness. So I just lead with that question. How have you been doing? Or like, we're all like these statements. We're all in this together. Okay, like yeah, as a global community, we are all in this together. Like it is a global thing that's affecting everyone. But don't apply that to everybody in the same way. Like the threat of there being a virus outside. Yes, we're all in that together.
mm,
But then when people's like these commercials, like we've been disconnected, we haven't been able to see people. I'm just like, yep. I mean, that's when I see those commercials. I'm like, yes, correct. Uh-huh. Yes. Okay. Like I'm not instantly grabbed like, oh no, you're so right. We're missing out on the
right.
connections. Cause like I didn't personally feel that way during my regular life. I wasn't like, I'm not missing the connection that you
Right.
guys are talking about per se.
Never. Never.
So I think that's hard for people to hear because they're like, are you guys human? And it's like,
Right.
it's not like see, okay, here's what I think is interesting, right? Man, there's so many episodes we have to do. I think that people fail to see the the strength that these things that introverts do have in other contexts. They only see like what is not happening in the social context. So I wrote this poem once. This wasn't about introvert or extrovert, but it says something about like, oh, men are so dirty, like they don't clean up. They're always, disheveled. And I was like, but that same dirty, that ability to like deal with dirtiness is like a soldier whose ability to like sleep in the sand when
Yeah.
he's at war.
Right. I say that a lot. I say
So
that
it's
to
like, so you're not seeing the context where that thing has its value.
right.
So for the introvert who's like, yo, I just don't miss people a lot, that's the reason you have these great albums or these great works of art or these
Mhm.
great movies, because that person can sit in a room and edit for hours and not need you. Because
Mhm.
if they were like, oh man, I'm really missing my
And
family,
time
I
is
should
moving at its fastest right then too.
yeah, I should stop editing and go say, I'm not saying you can't have a work-life balance. I'm not saying that at all. I'm
Yeah.
just saying that part to just be like, I need to focus on this task has its place because those people are the ones who are doing certain things that you're not going to do.
Right.
And they're
Now,
providing things in your life.
I generally miss my son. Like if I'm away,
Right.
physically miss my son. Like I'm so physically depressed about the day that he'll stop hugging me that it's like I'm already thinking about that. I'm like
Right.
having him sign contracts. I'm like, bro, like we need the contract. Daddy, I'll
Contracts.
always hug you. Like he's 8, he's almost 9. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I got like maybe 2, 3 tops years of like quality hug left, you know? And I'm like, that is tough, but
Right.
there's few people that you're ever gonna love like your own kids, you know what I'm saying? You got your
Right.
immediate family, right? But it's like outside of immediate family, like, okay, I miss Boston. I do. I'm still wearing a Boston hat. I miss Boston, but I see and talk to most of the people that it would be that I would quote unquote miss. So I don't actually miss them because I talk to them, right? Now, there's certain
Right.
friends I have, like I play a lot of basketball. A lot of my good friends I play basketball with. I miss playing basketball with them, but like talking to them when I talk to them on whether it's Facebook Messenger or whatever, that quells the need for me. Like I don't have like and some friend, some friends you have like a spot that you'll go to or a thing that you do, like, oh yo, I can't wait till we go to this restaurant, blah blah blah. That's different. Like this select people you have that kind of stuff with. I would almost ask you as a challenge, right, to think about what things do you most miss that have to do with other people? I kind of gave you mine. Like I miss playing basketball with some of my basketball friends, right? Which tend to be some of my better friends. I played basketball this morning at 8 o'clock with a bunch of strangers, right? They're on my team. This is the third game. Again, I know none of them. Most of them know someone else. There's 9 people on my team. Uh, I don't, nothing against them, but I don't ever need to meet any of them outside of just playing basketball. Like like they're planning on going doing some social stuff. I pretend I don't hear. I'm just
I
being straight up.
pretend I
I
don't
pretend
hear.
I don't hear, right? Because I truly want nothing to do with it. Because there's been it's not because I think any of them are not cool. I just don't know them to be cool. And so again, it comes back to me. There's stuff I'd rather be doing. You know. Speaking of which, there is my son. He's asking when's the show over. When's the show over? You want to be on the show? You want to come over here?
I want to go on Zoom.
Oh, okay.
When's it on?
I was just saying about your son. I was saying there's a few people I miss, but my son would be one of them.
But when does your show end?
It's gonna end. It's gonna end very soon.
How long?
It's probably gonna end in 12 minutes.
Yes.
All right. All right. Nice dance.
I don't know the challenge. I'm trying really hard to think. I don't know if I can meet your challenge. I mean, you're back muted again.
Oh, I was muting because of Henry, but thanks, Tree. I appreciate this comment. You've saved my soul. Not true, pro. Your son is always going to want and need a hug from you. Don't worry. Yeah, he tells me that all the time, but it's a different quality hug. Like we got hug on the couch and snuggle and watch Netflix hugs right now. You know what I'm saying? Like he's still 8. He's like, Daddy, when can we take a bath? It's like that kind of, like he wants that kind of quality time. Like we can't be doing that really at 13. You know what I'm saying? Like, I guess you can, but like I'm gonna probably interject at that point. 13th birthday, son. You know what I'm saying? No more baths.
Yeah.
It might be sooner than you think. Yeah, but and that's a physical thing too, just in terms of like fitting in the. We got one of those big jacuzzi baths. We got all the Marvel comic toys you can possibly. I actually can't wait for bath time. Truth be told, because I'm like, we got characters, we got powers,
We got
we got
characters.
all kinds of stuff. But yeah,
I mean, I'm trying to think of your question.
I gotta know for you, man. There's gotta be one. I can't let you leave with that one. At least if it isn't a super strong one, at least which one's on top of the pile. He's struggling.
I mean, okay, let me give you a recap of my life before the pandemic. It was like go to work, after work, make some beats at the job till a certain hour, maybe like 8. Come home, watch TV, eat some dinner.
Make some more beats.
If possible, make more beats. Go to sleep. Saturday, the only time I really go out is Saturday. Is like, okay, wake up, watch TV, breakfast, go out, have a hamburger, fries. So I mean, I guess I enjoyed going to this one restaurant, and they knew my usual,
They knew. Oh yeah, I remember
usual.
saying that, right?
But even
What
still,
up,
it's like
Anthony? That was me.
once they could deliver, I was like, oh, this is amazing. Y'all could deliver to my house.
Right.
So
He's struggling.
I'm
He's
really
struggling.
trying to think of a thing that I'm not doing now that I'm like, oh man, I wish that was back. I mean, maybe as we're talking about doing introverse stuff, I'll be like, oh man, introvert stuff in person will be better. And there's like stipulations, but okay, maybe I don't see. I don't even know though, because I told you I was doing this hip hop contest at school, March Madness style. I only had 5 people submit. So I had to extend the deadline. I had to open it up to all the high schools in the district just to try to get more people. And it was only beat makers, no rappers. So I was like, these kids are not even submitting for something that's online. And the reason they were excited about it online, they're like, oh, great, I don't have to be in person. Like every time I ask, are you going to do the contest? I'm not getting in front of everybody. Nah. Right. Then I said, oh, it's a 1-minute video. Oh, maybe. Okay. So if I held an in-person hip hop tournament, I don't even know if people would apply. So I would say that. I mean, I was watching a video from when we did when I first got there, and just watching the video, I was like, oh yeah, we did that. Like, oh, that like the energy, and they were so excited. So maybe that. Right. But it would have to actually be people who would turn out for that.
That counts.
That counts.
Shout out to my man AB Money checking in. AB Platinum artist AB Money, man. If y'all don't know about AB Money, I don't know what y'all do with your life. Check out AB Money, man. You know about AB Money. You might not know that you know about AB Money. They like that AB Money. Okay, Earth, Wind, and Fire, Big Daddy Kane, AB Money. Yes. Tupac, AB Money. Yes, that AB Money.
So if there was actual attendance and participation in a hip hop and beat battle, I guess I would say that.
Got you. See, I was thinking similarly. I was thinking there are situations after the beat making and after the writing and rhyming is actually performing or going to watch somebody perform. Those truthfully are the social circles that I'm most comfortable in. There's going to be in Boston, we had some planned ciphers. There's some like ciphers that took place. We had these Subway cipher series that were pretty dope. Different stores, different in-stores, things like that. I love checking out people I haven't heard before, hearing their skills, hearing their music, in the hopes that I'm going to actually hear someone who's dope, which it's a low ratio. Really, it's always been a low ratio, right? But I have found that Clubhouse supplements that for me too, because I'll go in and truth be told, a lot of the rooms that I go into in Clubhouse for like musical talent, a lot of the people are good. It's just it's a subsection of people who are actually talented across all genres. You know, there are some people who aren't, you know what I'm saying? But the ratio is so much higher in there. I think people go in there are serious about their stuff. So I guess what I'm saying is I do miss going to some live venues, being able to like out here in DC, Busboy and Poets. Like I miss that. First of all, Busboy and Poets is just dope. It's like, you know, there's food, there's different spoken word all the time, there's features. You can get up and do something if you're feeling the urge, right? And so you can work on your craft. Man, that's dope. That's about as high as it gets for me. I'm always saying the fact every city doesn't have a Busboy and Poets is like they should really be taking that show on the road. It's, you know, I was saying about it before, and it's like a Langston Hughes inspired kind of play. It's just crazy, you know.
See, I don't know if I say miss as much as some stuff is just easier. Like on Zoom, yeah, it's kind of hard to teach kids how to make beats because there's something about the tactile nature of pressing a drum pad and be like, hit the kick drum like this. Okay, now hit it like that, and it's easier to transfer the knowledge. So I don't know if it's necessarily miss as much as it's like, oh, this particular component of teaching you how to make beats is easier than me saying, click on that, now click on that. Do you hear that rhythm? So the sort of head-to-head thing loses something when a part of beat is about movement and body motion and touch and, you know, feel the like literally feel the vibrate. I mean, I guess that's another thing. Like when I was, because one thing that I love to do is like when everybody's gone, it's like I can turn up these monitors and I can play my music as loud as possible. So I guess to a certain degree, literally feeling the bass, the 808s kicking me, you know, throughout my body. I can't do that here in my apartment. without getting in trouble.
So you
So the
saying you
fact that
miss
I'm
the bass more than you miss people?
yeah, yeah, I miss those monitors bumping those 808s, and I feel it, and I get to hear my music out loud. So I told you, creative extrovert. So I want to my extroverted
Mhm,
self is like, get out, music. You want to hear
mhm,
yourself. So there's something about hearing music out loud that I wouldn't be able to do in my apartment. So I guess that would
mm.
be the closest I'd come to because I'm required to be in the building to be able to access those. That I guess.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I apologize to Trini. I had my mic off for a little bit in Clubhouse there for like the last couple times I spoke. So there's probably some blank air. She's like, "Boy, I got really quiet." But Trini is cool with that. We know how she gets down. She's cool with the quiet time, just like us. Um, you know what? This has just occurred to me just thinking about the performing. And you talking about beat making and kind of showcasing those kind of things and doing the things we love to do. It's funny that, and this isn't an introvert extrovert thing either. I don't think it's funny how why I like to actually perform and why I like to watch people perform are exactly the same thing. When I was talking about that low ratio, I am so inspired. Truthfully, like hearing you the first time, I was like, oh yes, it's a Jedi. I've been waiting so. Jedis are rare in the universe, right? Like both metaphors make sense in that case. Jedis are rare in the Star Wars world, right? And Jedis are incredibly rare in real life as like marksman. This craftsmanship and marksmanship is somewhat rare, and I'm good with that. I'm good with people are like, oh, today's rap is so blah blah blah. It's like it's always been like that. It's always been the case that people who are truly really craftsmen are few and far between.
Right.
I think that goes across genres, but because we're in hip hop, we see it more often. I am so excited internally when I see someone who's dope. It's like seeing someone who you can go, yeah, I never thought of that before. Like that
Right.
opens my mind to a whole bunch of possibilities that I never thought of. And it has nothing to do with biting style or character or content. It has to do with the fact that somebody changed my mind and made me think just when I know every trick, just when I know everything, there's a new way to you know what I'm saying? There's
Right.
why didn't I think about that? And then you just push yourself harder within your given style and framework to say, what is it that I'm not exploring? And it's going to make me go home and write. So when I see someone who makes me want to go home and write, or makes me want to go home and make a better song or perform better, because truthfully, the thing that I work on the least is my actually performance. Like, even though I perform a relative lot, I don't really work. I'm like, okay, I'm a craftsman. You're paying to see the craftsmanship. It's
Right.
not me how I jump around on the stage or whatever, but you do have to think about how you move, how you look, how you sound, blah blah blah. I say the opposite. Well, it really no, I don't mean the opposite. The similar thing. I just mean from who the vantage point is. So when I perform, I'm looking to provide that same experience for someone else. I'm hoping
Right.
that someone in the crowd has, and this isn't as much as it sounds like it's about us. I don't think it is. I'm hoping that I can provide the experience that I so richly get from other people for you. And
Right.
I don't have to, but I'm hoping that if you watch my performance, someone in there like, yo, I want to go home and write. And to me, every time, that's why I do like having conversations after, because when someone tells me that, it's really validation that what I'm doing is actually doing what I hope to do and set out, that I inspired you to make a change that would change your game. Because it's like teaching or being in the administrative side. I always have this wrestle with myself. I'm like, can I do more good in the administrative side of the aisle? And the answer is yes for me. Like I can reach more people as an administrator than I actually can as a teacher, unless we're rebroadcasting our teaching, right? And we're using like YouTube or something to do that. Then that might be a possible no. But I feel like a really quality administrator can influence more people. And just, I'm thinking of a performer too. And I'm like, see, seeing somebody who makes you want to change the game. There could be 5, 6, 7 people out there who go home and now they're going to go impact a whole bunch of other people too. So I have this kind of dichotomy where I'm like, do I affect more people as an educator or as an administrator? And I think the same way. I'm like, am I impacting more people, or me just hearing somebody who impacted me? Am I going to be able to turn that out to all my networks? And now you inspired me. Like when I first heard Pharoah Monch, my life changed. I was like,
Right.
yo, this is the most talented verbalist I've ever heard, other than maybe Chip Fu. So I'm like, yo, this dude is on a whole different spiritual plane with his stuff. I'm like, I gotta up the notch. Just hearing him made me go exponentially in this direction? And so I'm having those questions all the time. I don't know if there's an answer. I think it's something we internally wrestle with, but I do know from the selfish side, in terms of like teaching and administration, you've heard me say before, I choose the teaching side more often because it frees me up to then be able to go make more impact. I need those 3 months off. I need the time, the liberal time schedule. I have these kind of questions all the time, but at the end of the day, those are the social settings that I want to be in. I want to be in ones that are going to make life-changing impact either for somebody, or I'm going to have life-changing impact from
Right.
what you did, you know? And those are the social things, if there are any, that I miss the most. I'm answering my own question.
Well, I guess to answer your question, I did think of another thing. But it's one of those things I wouldn't have. Well, basically, we had a professional development thing, and I don't know if years past if they opened it up to everybody, and I wasn't paying attention, or they just didn't open it up. But this year they were like, "Hey, you know, submit an idea." So I was like, "Okay, podcasting is creative mental health." And so I was excited because it was like a TED talk. And I was like, I'm about to destroy this. Like, I'm about to come in here. I'm about to say what needs to be said that nobody wants to say. I had a good 30 people sign up, and it went very well on Zoom. They were debating because they were saying could be in person or both, but then they decided to keep it all virtual. And so, yeah, I guess I miss the sort of feeling you get in the room when you know you're like owning the room.
Yeah.
Like you step up and everybody's like, oh, what's this little talk going to be? And then you're like, bam. And everybody's like, oh.
But quantify that though. Quantify that though, because this is what I'm saying. I think we may be in the same thing. I'm saying quantify it because I've taken that to the next level for me and say, why do I care? And I realize that it's about impact. It's not like truthfully, it sounds egotistical. It's like I don't need another person to tell me I'm a dope rapper.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I don't. But you like that. Right. Obviously, everybody likes compliments and praise. Right.
Right.
I'm a little weird with it sometimes, truth be told. I don't always handle that the best way. But if somebody's like, yo, what you just wrote, I changed. Now I know. And I'm like, that person's going to go. I get excited by impact just in all areas. And I don't know if it's the same for you. I'm just saying, why is it that, like, you're the man? Like, I mean, I think you do. I mean, I would think it has to be obvious to you that you're a marksman, right? So it's like, you don't really need me to tell you that, but maybe when I do, maybe in turn it's that that it's going to make me go do something that you can't do by yourself.
Well, I think it speaks to the other two things I was going to say too, though. Because, okay, you asked me, what do I miss about, before the social distancing? I was like, it's hard to answer that question because the experience is so unique in that it, for the first time ever, made like introvertism a globally accepted thing. Right. So it's like, it's hard for me to be like, it's hard to be like, what do I miss? It's like, no, this is like someone opened up the portal to the introvert paradise for 2 years. Like, I don't miss anything. I'm like, I was waiting for this.
This has been the enchilada we're waiting for.
Like, this 2 years that is now before me has not been long enough to balance out the times that it was not. So it's like you're asking somebody like, so before you were rich, like, what do you miss? It's like, what? I don't miss any of this. I've been waiting on being rich.
Right.
So it's like, I've been waiting on people to be like, oh, this is. So I think that connects to the other thing I was going to say was similarly, it's like, it's like that feeling of having other people, like you're saying of your wife, had to finally taste of this way. That feeling makes it hard to answer because you're like, no, I'm enjoying other people tasting this way of being, and I'm also just the expert in it at this time. Is like, finally, So that I would say is the same reason what I would miss the doing of the PD talk, because like I would be standing up in front of people and I would be saying things as like, oh, this guy actually knows what he's talking about, and it's like powerfully hitting us because no one ever says this, and this isn't like, it's like you got to. It's like, okay, let's put in these terms. Macro, micro. Macro is introverted way became globally popular on the world level. Like, it had to be.
As a necessity.
Necessity, popular by force.
Yeah.
So everyone's like, oh, we have to be introverted.
This way. This is going to be terrible. We're like, oh my gosh, it's coming. It's finally here. It's like,
so everyone is like, oh man, we're being forced to be this way, which we've never to be before. And so we have to experience it, just like the introverts had to experience being extroverted. Come out of your shell. Come on, be out. So it's like you're flipped. The whole world is flipped on its head. So on a micro level, I think in a PD session, that's what I would have felt if it was live. It was like, oh man, I'm about to stand up here on this mic. I'm about to tell y'all some stuff that y'all wouldn't hear otherwise, and it's gonna shine. It's gonna be like, yes, everything you're saying blows our stuff out of, like, we needed to hear this. Like, this way of being, we shouldn't be doing this. We should be doing your way of being.
Yeah.
So I feel like I would have really enjoyed doing that in person, like just bringing the content, asking the questions. What do you got to say? No, I'm about to. Yeah, I got the question. I got an answer for you. This is not a, well, how are we thinking of it? Like that's all these PD things are now. Hey guys, how are we thinking about? No, we're not thinking about. This is the answer.
This is how it is.
This is the answer. Now listen, you need podcasts, you need mental health, you need creativity. And so I think there's something about having your physical body in that space. I would consider that the more extroverted part itself, is like, oh, being with people around them, the energy, the breath, hearing the voices off the wall, the acoustics, being present would have had a different effect than Zoom. Because on Zoom, it was great. I still felt it, but it would have been something, getting to talk to people afterwards and, wow, because somebody did come to me like a week after, and she, like, I couldn't see because she had the mask on and I couldn't remember her face from the Zoom, but she knocked on the door. She was just like, thumbs up. And I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, the thing you did. I was like, oh. So I guess that kind of feedback, even though, like you're saying, I know that I'm doing a good job, but it's coming from someone else who probably typically wouldn't validate that. It feels, it feels validating from someone to be like, oh, your way. Thank you for being here.
But again, that's you change it. You move the needle for someone. You move. You had impact in a place where you weren't 100% positive that you were going to until somebody actually told you. Because I think having impact as an educator or speaker for me is different. Like it's not always a home run because I'm not even though I do a lot of it, I'm not as proficient in just generally speaking about this is my method, this is what I do. Will that come across as I am maybe just in a classroom or just rapping, right? So when I throw the PD element into something, I'm happy when like 33% of the people will come up and be like, yo, like that was great. Like, and I'm assuming the people who aren't saying anything are like, okay, I've either heard this before or, it was like underwhelming, and so I do feel I need that validation more because it's the thing that I'm lowest on. It's like, okay, I know my rap ability. I know my math teaching ability. It's like the way I communicate, how I do PD for me, I've been doing less time in my life. Right. Almost 5 years now at the institution I'm at, but I was never doing it before. I taught, I had done TED Talks and stuff like that, which are PD-ish in nature, and keynotes and that kind of stuff. But quite honestly, I always felt like, I could have done better at that.
Right.
And we've all felt that at a show or in a class or anything too, but not as often. Like, do I feel like I do a show and I'm like, I know that was pretty good. Like I know that song. The song is good. I said it correctly. There you go. I kind of know how I did. I don't really need, unless my mic wasn't clear or something like that. But like when I'm delivering a message that isn't something that I deliver every day, like someone's saying, hey, I need you to speak on, and that happens a lot. Someone say, hey, I need you to speak on, okay, I know how to do that. Don't know it as well as I know X, Y, and Z. It would be nice if someone came and told me, because it'd be like, okay, more of that's working. But again, I just think the equation at the end for a lot of us, I know for me, is like the things that I read, research, write, and investigate into are things that are monumental in my life. And I'm assuming that if somebody's coming to hear us speak, do PD or whatever, these are big issues for them too. And if I know I made impact in that area, I'm like, okay, this is exponential growth. This is more than I could do just being by myself in my house. And so in that regard, I miss that, if I'm not able to do that as much. Not for camaraderie.
Right.
But I guess my exception, I'm always saying, is the people who I do know, I do like, I do trust, I do see more often. Yeah, I'm generally favorable about if someone called me right now who's like a really good friend of mine, and granted, I really don't have that many. I know far more people than I'm actually tighter with. I'd probably be pretty cool about the prospect of going out and getting the slice. I'd be like, yeah, that sounds cool. cool, let's do that. Because I know what they're going
Right.
to talk about. It excites me. I know I'm getting something out of it. They're probably getting something out of my company, and it's a win-win. When it's random, I'm like, you're probably wasting my time.
Right.
And every single time, and I should probably end with this because I know I got to get going. My son is doing bad math because it's definitely 20 minutes at least.
Right.
Looks like 22. Is that every single time someone hits me up on Instagram, Facebook, or whatever, and it's unsolicited, I feel like I'm one of these leadership classes where they're like, don't send an
Right.
unsolicited email. Boy, they're speaking my language. I'm like, as soon as you send me something that seems sales-ish to me, I so have you in the circular file, and I assume that a lot of people are coming from that position, like, yo, this person was cool, never heard of them before. Everything they were saying was pretty dope. They must be trying to sell me something that I don't need. Like, that's my default, right?
Right.
And it's like, I think so poorly about people I don't know. Like, they're either scheming, they're angling. I know that has something to do with how I was raised, how I came up, or whatever. But some of that has led to I'd rather be by myself over here until you prove to me that you've got through the gauntlet and that's not you, and that you're just generally a dope person. And then I'm like, yeah, let's go get a slice. I'm cool.
Right.
Like, I
Right.
can't wait to hear more of your thoughts, But otherwise, it's like,
Right.
I'm playing just probability. I'm probably better off by myself. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I trust what I'm about to do. And I think this also comes with I would leave it with this. There is the introvert likely knows that there is an authenticity to themselves. We've talked about this idea of liking yourself, right? Like, I know I'm a quality person. So there is a confidence, a feeling of self-worth, right? That's going to be high, I think, in an introvert who's come of age. Remember, when I was younger, I didn't feel that way. I didn't have the same self-worth that I do now. From repetition, from practicing a craft, from speaking about it, from teaching, from educating, from hearing the impact that you make, we get to a certain point where we're like, okay, now I'm pretty confident of what I'm doing. So we need that feedback and that validation to a point. And then after, it's like, okay, now I know I'm on the track of making impact, but I also have validation in myself. I have a high level of self-respect and self-worth. And I think that goes with the introvert territory. And I'm
Right.
not sure if all extroverts feel the same way, because like you said,
Right.
it's this external validation. This is another pitch for the introvert way. It's like, if you can get to a place where you're comfortable as an introvert, it probably means that you're comfortable with yourself as a person, and
Right.
that the probability is just better that you're not wasting your own time, and that person over there you don't know who hasn't gone through the gauntlet it's not so safe of a bet. That's how I leave.
I'll end on this. What up, Chris and Clubhouse? We're actually about to wrap up, and we mainly streaming on
Chris?
we mainly we're on Restream on video, so Clubhouse is active, but we're not really bringing people up the stage.
Yeah, we are not very active drawers out of the people that be.
Well, it's kind of hard to
in Clubhouse.
It's kind of hard to manage people on stage and then get the audio on the video. So we're just, but okay. To your question again, like what was missed about social distancing? And I said, well, the PD session where I go in and I'd sort of own the room and shine. Okay, but the nuance for me, mine is definitely different than what you were saying. I think for me, it's like, okay, no, here's the thing I came up with, right? I was like, I feel like the introvert is like 99% confident in themselves, and there's that 1% slice of the pie chart, which is the other way of being, which is the extrovert itself. So they're like 99% like, this is the truth, this is the message, y'all need to hear this. And then there's that 1% of someone in the audience going, I needed that. And you go, ah. And even though it's 1%, it's because it's different. It's like the difference of the energy makes you go like, oh, I needed that extroverted validation, even though I'm confident in what I'm saying. I needed someone to receive it. And I think the extrovert is opposite. I think they're like 99% certain in their confidence in their friends, but there's still that 1% of them which like needs to know, but wait, I believe in me. Even though it's just a 1%, they still need to know they believe in themselves. It's just a matter of what kind of energy. So I think in that PD, that's what I is experiencing, because I'm the kind of person who's like, look, I'm leaving the package on the door. Like, this is it. This is the truth. If you don't like it, like, I don't know how to tell you, but I know it's the truth, and I walk away. But there is also a part of me that really does want somebody to. I hear the door open as I walk away and see them pull it in and be like, somebody
Right.
took it in.
Right.
Somebody accepted the package. Like, even though I'm confident in it, that little part of me wants to know that I was needed.
Yeah.
Right. Because I'm a human and I want to know that my way is needed. So I feel like that's my answer to the question. Is like in the PD, if we would have been in person, I would have probably got more of an overwhelming experience, like an emotional experience where people probably came up and like hugged me. Who knows? They were like, because here's the crazy thing. At the beginning of that PD, I played a podcast. It was like 12 minutes of 4 boys in my class who were opening up, being vulnerable about their fathers and relationships. And I'm a man. And I was like, man, what happened? I heard this before. I was like, whoa.
Right.
So I'm sure some people in there were probably like, whew, okay. So I think if I would have felt that in-person visceral thing, it probably would have brought some healing. I would have been like, okay, like you do get me a little bit.
Yeah.
And that little connection would have like closed the gap where it's like, okay, I can distrust you a little less more. Like I'm more willing. All right.
Right.
You accept it. Okay, maybe we can move a little closer in this dynamic. So I feel like it would have been nice to have that in person.
Yeah. Well said. Understood. Hey, we hit 2 hours on the nose, even with all our technical difficulties. So we did pretty well moving that along. But
let's roll that outro music and
thanks for the people who checked in. And we definitely had a little glitch there on Facebook, a little glitch on Clubhouse, but we're pretty good. We're pretty good. All right, we out of here until next Sunday. And don't forget, if you are on Clubhouse, you can catch Bernard and I on Monday nights. Bernard and me on Math Magical. Is that what we call it?
Math Magical Mondays.
Math Magical Mondays. That's 6:30 Eastern or 6?
I think it's 6:30.
Feels like 30. No, I think it's 6. I think it's 6. Is it 6? I might be off. It's 6-ish.
It's in the 6 o'clock hour.
Yeah, it's definitely in the 6-ish realm. I'm thinking, like, is it in the bottom of our little pictures here? Let's see. Let's see. Math Magical. I don't think anyone's set it up yet, so that's probably on us. So we leave it to Saki too often. We're like, Saki's got it. But that's a great room. If you ever checked it out, Saki usually is the main organizer of that, and Bernard and I are trying to do what we can. And Bernard, you do also after that, you do your room, right?
No, Tuesdays at 7 Eastern. I do the Thinkubator for education ecosystem. Come get ideas, come get creativity, dissect the night. Last time we talked about building your own table. Stop.
Yes.
Sitting at the table of present education. We'll start building our own table, like Tyler Perry said.
And I don't have my own table because I don't run any shows. I just go in and listen and participate. And one of these days, I'll do my own show or my own club or something. But technically, Introverse is our club. But forgot about that. But even you had to start that. That was, I never think of these things. You know what I'm saying? But one day. All right, Joe.
All right.
Enjoy the rest of the great day of Sunday. All right. Take care.